Hey everyone, good evening. Thank y'all for being here. It's good to see you. Welcome to the beginning of Minding Our Minds, our February Open Table program on our incredible brains and minds. We are starting out with an aptly titled program, The Wonders of Your Brain, and I am thrilled to welcome Marianne Huebner, who is at HopeWay, has been at HopeWay since its inception, since it came to Charlotte. She's an art therapist and also a trauma specialist. She is also a friend to Covenant in many ways, not least of which is she is a good friend of Karen Willis. Which is wonderful, and we are delighted to have her here. Thank you, all of you who are on Zoom. We are delighted that you're here. We see you. We know that you're here. Karen is checking in, so if you have questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and Karen will make sure that they get to Marianne. So thank y'all for being here. Without further ado, Marianne, welcome.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm just going to take a second to clip this on, because I'm going to have a handful of stuff. Mainly my notes. I know what I'm talking about. I just want to keep myself on track. I tend to wander. Anyway, so I'm an art therapist. I don't know if anyone knows what an art therapist is. I thought I'd start with that. I use creativity in addition to language to work with folks. And a certified trauma specialist, I focus in on what's called the instinctual trauma response. So looking at the biological factors that happen in our brain and body when we experience high amounts of stress or trauma. So just to give you a little background of what I do, I've also been practicing meditation for the past 25 years, and I've been facilitating it for the past 10. So yeah, feel free when we're done with the program or ask any questions. I'll try to keep myself on track. I've got Karen who's going to help me out with time, so we should be good. All right, so before I start, of course, HopeWay is a nonprofit, and I do want to thank our corporate sponsors. Our diamond sponsors are up here in the corner, and they help us to do community outreach and educational programs. So we're really grateful for all of their support. Oops, wrong button. This button.
If it doesn't work, let me know.
I think it works if I hold it the right way. Yes, I had to stand on one foot. All right, a little bit about HopeWay. Again, we are a nonprofit organization. We serve adults. Well, we have two campuses right now. I work at the adult campus where we serve adults who are struggling with anxiety, depression, and co-occurring addictions. We also have a teen. I'll go through that in the next slide. But at HopeWay, we do a lot of different things. We believe in holistic care. So we're looking at not only your psychiatrist and your psychologist and your talk therapist, but we include people like myself who are integrative therapists. Integrative therapists integrate aspects of life back into your life. So I would be, as an art therapist, everyone comes to me and we make art or some form of creativity, which is something that we stop doing when we stop feeling good, right? We also have music therapists, horticultural therapy, rec therapy, pet therapy. This is Olive. She's a favorite. We have drumming, yoga, and meditation. So all of these things are not optional. They are part of well-researched and a well-put-together program. There we go. Here's our beautiful campus. It looks like a spa. Again, we serve adults. Oh, something just happened on this one. There we go. We got it.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
Is equine therapy part of a similar integrative therapy?
Yeah, equine therapy. We don't offer equine therapy, but there is equine therapy around Charlotte or outer lying areas, and it's very valuable. It isn't about riding the horses, but it's about allowing the horses to kind of be with your energy. Yeah, for sure. Definitely an integrative. We also have a teen. We just opened a teen mental health and a teen young adult eating disorder day program. They're brand new and they're spectacular. We also have veteran and first responder services and outpatient care. So HopeWay's growing every year, and we love that. We are here to serve the community and make sure that we are all in our optimal mental health. All right. learning objectives today. This is what I hope to accomplish in my little presentation here, is that you get a basic overview of brain anatomy. Most of the stuff you may have heard of or you might be familiar with, so it'll just be maybe a little bit of a review. Then I'm going to look at your brain function and some signs that maybe your brain isn't functioning well. The symptoms that you are under may be a little bit too much stress. And then I'm going to talk about what things you can do to decrease that stress. All right. There we go. Ha I have to point at that one. Okay. So thank your brain. Your brain, in the most simplest context, is wired for survival, period. Its main job is to get you to today. And then if you're here today, its main function is to get you to tomorrow. So if you are here today, which you all are, thank your brain. That's it, and I'm done. It's been good to see you. Okay, so I do have my little cards here because I get off topic. So your brain is actually responsible for just about everything. This is your engine, your motor, your executive function, bless you, the whole bit. So it's responsible for not only getting you here today, but it's the epicenter for your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors. That's the work that I do, right, as a therapist. But it's also responsible for every function in your body, your nervous system, your digestive system, your circulatory system, and your limbic system. But it's also responsible for things that we don't often think about, like time travel. Yes, your brain time travels, and we'll go into that in a second. Future forecasting, we're experts at being terrible at that. Remembering, forgetting, remembering that we forgot, and forgetting that we remembered something. Our brain is also responsibility for creativity, dreaming, imprinting, mirroring, socializing, learning, and so on. So I want to just talk about time travel. This is a really cool thing. A lot of people don't realize that we have this really unique capability, and yet we totally know we have it. We time travel all the time. I can go back to, yesterday mentally and be like, oh, that was a great sandwich I had for lunch, right? But my body can't do it. My brain can. I can also jump to tomorrow and be like, I hope I have that same sandwich, right? So this is time travel that we can do. It's a necessary part. It helps us to learn. It helps us to grow. And without it, we would not make reservations at restaurants. So we have to remember what restaurant we liked in order to make the reservation. We wouldn't buy tickets to concerts we want to go to. We'd have to remember the music we like in order to plan to go to that concert. And as I like to say, we would never have birthday cake, right? We'd have to remember someone had a birthday and then plan, get the ingredients, make the cake, right? So birthday cake is important to me, as is time travel, and it's an amazing thing our brain can do. The problem comes with time travel is that we don't often come back to the present. So a lot of times we're so busy in this world of before and after that we forget to come back to now. And what happens sometimes is we can get stuck in the past, and that feels like depression. And we can get stuck in the future, and that feels like anxiety. And the one way to release that is come back to the now. And we'll go over a little bit of that later. As far as future forecasting, we are terrible at that. I future forecast every time I buy a lottery ticket. This is what I'm going to do with that money. I'm going to have a big I'm going to da-da, and then I'm going to be here, right? That is future forecasting, and I will tell you I've never been accurate at that. I've also had future forecasting where I think the worst case scenario. If I'm going for a walk and it's early in the morning and it's dark and I'm walking my dog and there's going to be a snake on the path and it's going to bite me and I'm going to be all alone, I'm going to be like, oh, right? It's never happened yet. So this is future forecasting. And again, it's really important that we experience it, but also know that we are not accurate at it. This one. Oops, wrong way. Nope, right way. I'll get it yet. Okay, so now we're going to go to the hemispheres. I like to think of this as the Spock brain and the Jackson Pollock brain, right? So our left side, and this is a really basic 101 kind of breakdown. What we know with modern neuroscience, especially in particular, is that different parts of our brain light up when we do different activities. So I'm also an artist, and what I can tell you is that when I make art, I'm not only on this side. I'm all over my brain because it's decision making, it's color, it's recognition, it's movement. So this, again, it's a very oversimplified version, but for the purposes of today, it's going to help us out a lot to kind of simplify what we do. Now, how many of you would identify as that left-brained person? I always hear like, I'm a left-brained person, I'm a right-brained person. And some, anyone identify as a right brain, right? So the right brains tend to be the creatives. I'm creative, I'm a right-brained person. And like I said, stuff happens all over. But this is really important. So the left side is responsible for logic, language, and sequencing, otherwise known as time. Time is part, right? Time is a sequence. And the right side is responsible for emotions, creativity, and intuition. And we're going to get more into all of these things and why they're so important and why this breakdown is really important. Let's see if I can get it to go the right way. Nope. All right. The other parts of the brain that we're going to talk about today. There's the prefrontal cortex, otherwise known as the neocortex. Basically, I put that here. This is a top-down look. So it's essentially your forehead, but it's really the outer layer of your brain. Now, it's the last part of our brain to develop from an evolutionary standpoint, right? This is why it's the neocortex. It's the last one. It's the newest. Then the neocortex is our executive function. It is responsible for emotional regulation. So if I feel sad, I want to come out of that and process through it to come to this place of, homeostasis. It's also where we make decisions. Now, not only is it the last part of our brain to develop from an evolutionary standpoint, but it's the last part of our brain to develop from, where we are right now. And what that means is, for females, this part of the brain stops developing, or finishes developing, I should say, early to mid-20s. And for men, sorry, for the men in the room, it's a little later. You guys develop a little slower. Like never. No, I'm just kidding. It's late 20s. Right? I heard someone like, it's true, yeah, I heard that. So what this means is when we're working with teenagers, for any of you who have teenagers or who have had teenagers, when you ask them, why did you do that or what are you doing, and they do this, they may actually be telling you the truth. The decision-making part of their brain is still developing. And it's not to say you can write them off and be like, oh, well, you don't know because your brain isn't developed. Okay, bye. No, but it's a great time to sit down and be like, okay, we're going to work on better decision-making because that part of your brain is still developing, so I'm going to help you out with that. All right, the other side of the brain, the amygdala and the hippocampus, or I'm sorry, not the other side, this part. So this part here, this little almond shape is our amygdala. And this is what we like to call our smoke detector or our fire alarm. It senses danger and it sounds the alarm, which we'll get to in a little bit, and sends the whole body and the brain into its stress response. So it's responsible for your stress, the release of your stress hormones, which I'll get into in a little bit what those are. And again, it puts the body into action. It's like the gas pedal on your car, right? And the hippocampus is responsible for remembering why those hormones were released in the first place. We want to remember if something scared us or didn't scare us, right? All right, next slide. Oh, this is just another way to look at the simplicity of the brain. The triune brain was a term that was coined back in the 1960s, and it was debunked in the 1970s because they were like, it's too simple. But it's come back, it's back in vogue, because as we look at trauma, traumatic stress, traumatic loss, and how that impacts the brain, this is a really great way to do it. So it's everything that I just shared you, but in a different format. So the inner circle right here, the survival, the amygdala is right in here. This is what we would call a reptilian brain. Reptiles only know survival, eat, reproduce, fight or flight. The middle brain is our emotional brain, and then the outer circle is our neocortex, right? And it's our thinking brain. So that it's just a little slide, little extra knowledge that you probably don't need. Stuff that in the back pocket. All right, so we're going to talk about stress because everybody experiences stress. Stress and challenges are a natural part of everyday life, and stress is a normal and natural human response to any challenging situation, right? So some stress can reach traumatic levels, and sometimes we experience trauma, and that is considered a stress, right? So the word trauma, just real quick, is Greek for the word wound. Wound. So leaving us, the stress can leave us with wounds that need to be addressed. And I think that's a really nice way to look at stress. It's a wound that needs to be addressed. As we know, some wounds are little. I have little wounds right here. They're little scratches. I'm fostering 2 puppies. So I have lots of wounds that don't necessarily need a lot of addressing, right? But sometimes we have bigger wounds. Maybe a broken arm needs to be addressed a little bit differently. All right, so a little bit of stress is normal, and a little bit of stress is okay. It can actually motivate us. If I'm stressed out for a test, darn right, I'm going to study a little harder, right? However, a lot of stress over a period of time can be harmful to every system in our body. And we're going to get to that in just a little bit. So when we think about stresses, we can think about stress on a spectrum. So there's a little bit of stress when we are, let's say, in line at the pharmacy, right? Nobody likes to be in line or stuck in traffic. And then there's bigger stresses, right? Like 9/11 or the loss of a loved one. So when we have a little stress, we release a lot of the same hormones as when we have a lot of stress. It's just we release it in different amounts. I talk to my clients about, like, is this a 1/4 cup stress or is this a gallon of stress, right? So these, very little, not even a teaspoon. This is a pinch of stress, but it's followed, you know, it's coupled with all sorts of love from puppies. Car accident, gallons of stress, right? All right, the stress hormones. I love this slide. They take the fun out of function. So we have a whole bunch of different hormones in our body. Cortisol, which is the main stress hormone. This is the one that I'm going to talk the most about. We also have adrenaline, catecholamines, glucocorticoid. This one I'm going to talk a lot about a lot. I just like to say it because I feel like I sound really smart. It took me like a month to be able to pronounce glucocorticoid, so I'm going to say it a lot. But there's like 12 different hormones that kind of make up the hormone or the stress cocktail, and they are released when we experience stressful, challenging, or even life-threatening events. And what they do is they activate our stress response system, right? So they sound the alarm. Let's see. So the hormones send messages through your blood to your organs, your skin, your muscles, and other tissues and system, or other systems, and they impact actually our autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system, really quickly, is everything that we do that's automatic. We breathe. That's a part of our autonomic nervous system, right? And within our autonomic, we have 2 different types of nerve cells. One is the sympathetic nervous system. Again, this is when the gas pedals hit and the car goes. This is the go system. We also have the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's the one that says it's okay to rest and digest your food. Did I do it? Nope. I had to stand on one foot. All right, so again, the amygdala sounds the alarm. This is where I get to tell a little story about the saber-toothed tiger. We're going to pretend that there's a saber-toothed tiger that was hiding behind the piano. There isn't actually a tiger in the room. I do feel the need to say that because I often get asked that question. Where's the tiger? There's no real tiger here. But there's a saber-toothed tiger hiding behind the piano, and it has come out and it's lunging at us, right? And we're going to freeze time. So this saber-toothed tiger is like, rah, right? Just want you to burn that image in your mind. And we're going to freeze it right there in midair. Because by the time we see that happening, by the time we recognize that that tiger is going to come and get us, this alarm system has already gone off. This happens in 1/1000th of a second. So before we're even mildly even aware, our body's flooded. Wait. Oh, did I hit it too hard? There we go. Maybe I shouldn't do on one foot. Okay, so our brain is flooded with stress hormones. And then what happens is we have this blood-brain barrier in between those 2 hemispheres called the corpus callosum, and it actually manages information going back from one side of our brain to the other. And this is almost like the airbag in our car, right? So the minute cortisol hits it, it puffs up like the airbag. It's like a steel wall, and it reroutes communication, and it reroutes the blood flow in our brain and in our body. It's kind of a phenomenal thing. Okay. Saber-toothed tiger is still in the air. This puffs up, and it turns off certain parts of our brain. So again, tiger still in the air, and our prefrontal cortex goes offline. It has the red now is stop. So that part of our brain actually stops. We have pardon?
Why would it do that?
Oh, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, no, it's a great, right? Like, no, I need to make a decision. Yeah, so the prefrontal cortex goes offline, as does the left hemisphere. Now remember, the left hemisphere is for language, logic, and time. So what comes online is our right side. Remember, intuition, which is also instinct, is over there. In that region of our brain is where we experience the life-saving reptilian brain that says fight, flight, or freeze, right? So our brain says, I can't start to think about what I'm going to do about this, right? If these parts of my brain are online, this is my decision making. It's a saber-toothed tiger. Do I run? Do I zigzag? I'm supposed to climb the tree, right? I have just taken off seconds to my life. As I'm thinking, we think typically in words, and we think in logic. We're trying to make sense of something. We can't make sense of it in that time frame because it takes valuable seconds off of our life. So the brain, or the amygdala shuts those two parts of our brain down, and it allows the amygdala to do what it needs to do, and it makes a decision for us: fight, flight, or freeze. The interesting thing about that is all of your brains have experienced this, and all of your brains have made the right decision. How do I know? Because you're here, right? We don't always like the decision that the brain makes, right? We don't always want to end up where we ended up, but we're always glad that we're here. So the brain makes a decision for us. Now, we can override the system, to be fair. Our military is experts at this. They practice overriding the system so that they could go to combat. If they went into combat and they didn't have the ability to shut this whole thing down, they wouldn't do it. It'd be too terrifying, right? So we do have the ability to reroute, but that's a whole other magic session that we won't talk about today. All right, so tiger's still in the air. We froze in time. And we just saw what happens to the brain. Brain's like fight, flight, or freeze. What am I going to do? And it increases the blood flow to the heart because it's got to pump blood faster to the places where we need it. And we need it in our arms for fighting. I'm going to fight that saber-toothed tiger. And we need it in our legs. No, I'm not. I'm going to run away, right? And freeze is a whole different response because our brain will often say within that scenario, tiger's stronger than I am, tiger's faster than I am, so let's freeze. Because in this moment I'm prey, that's a predator, predators respond to movement, so I'm going to be still and I'm going to stop breathing. Not stop breathing, I'm going to shallow my breath. Now, as you can see in this, I put this here to be convenient and now it's in the way. There's an area where we don't have any blood flow, right? Because the blood has to come from somewhere. We have increased blood in our arms and our legs, but where does it come from? And it pulls from our core. It pulls from our stomach, our intestines, our colon, and all the soft tissue organs in the middle. Why does it do that? Well, A, because we need more blood, and B, because if that saber-toothed tiger is about to eat me, the last thing I need to do is digest my jelly sandwich. My body's like, we don't have time to digest the food right now. We got to do something, right? So we reroute the blood. Let me catch up to where I am here. Apparently, I've gone through quite a few slides. This is great. By the way, the saber-toothed tiger doesn't get us in this scenario. All right. All right. Let me go back here. So the brain responds, and the body has this response, the brain has this response, and we enter into the stress response system. This is it, and fight, flight, or freeze. Now, there's a lot of things that, So there's a lot of physical symptoms that we experience when we're experiencing stress. This was a high stress situation, but we experience the same physical reaction. The biological reaction is the same, even if it's a small stressor, again, like being stuck in traffic, right? A lot of times we have a whole list of symptoms and we just sort of brush them off, right? We're like, oh, I'm achy again today, or whatever it is, or we conflate them with something else. So some of the symptoms when we know that our stress response system has been activated, right, that we're stressed out, are that, let's go to the mind first. We struggle to make decisions, right? Here's a really everyday way that we struggle to make decisions. Hey, honey, what do you want to eat tonight? I don't know. What do you want to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to go for dinner? I don't know. Where do you want to go for dinner? I don't know. My partner and I have this conversation daily. And we've come up with whoever asks the question, the other person has to make the decision because we asked first. But we struggle to make decisions because we're stressed out after a long day at work, right? The other thing, making decisions, how many times you get up before work and you open your closet and you're like, oh, I don't know what to wear. You know what's in your closet. The fact that you can't make a decision as to what I'm going to wear tells you that you're probably pretty stressed about going to work, right? So that's one of the key things. Remember that prefrontal cortex goes offline. That's our decision-making ability. So when we struggle to make decisions, that's telling us that we have too much cortisol flowing through our brain at that moment. Struggle to put words to events. We have this all the time, especially with loss. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say, right? We often are at a loss for words. Feeling overwhelmed. Oh, this is a great one. A lot of times we feel overwhelmed. We know we're stressed, but the overwhelmed feeling is like, why can I not make sense of this? Well, your logic is offline. Cortisol impacted your left side of the brain and logic is offline. So it's easy to get overwhelmed because I'm stuck in my emotional state. And don't worry, we'll find a way out. We'll get to that eventually. Feeling anxious or depressed, feeling disconnected. That's another good one too. So one of the catecholamines, I think I pronounced that right, that run through is an analgesic. Our body produces a natural form of morphine. And we know this, like if you break an arm, you go into shock, right? You have a physical shock. Well, our brain does the same thing. It goes into shock. This analgesic makes us feel numb and we often feel disconnected. Unable to make sense of things, again, logic went offline. Our body, you may experience a change in temperature. Like right now my cheeks are a little flushed, right? Because I'm excited to be here. An increase in heart rate, here's some. Acid reflux, upset stomach, or digestive disturbances, right? A lot of people will talk about when they are stressed, oh, my stomach hurts. I'm not hungry. Or in my case, my stomach hurts, I must be starving, I should eat right now. And then I eat for an hour and I'm like, I should be full. And if I'm still like, I'm hungry, and I'm like, no, wait, I'll do a little meditation, some deep breaths, and I'm like, oh, now my stomach hurts because I ate too much. I was just stressed out. We get irritable bowels and constipation or diarrhea when we're stressed out. A lot of people don't know this. Like you actually get constipation when you're stressed out. And instead, we'll go to a doctor and be like, I have this issue. And they very rarely will say it's stress. Tension, headaches, and migraines. Hard to breathe, short of breath, backaches, muscle aches, agitation, irritability. The list is kind of endless. Again, remember that these things are the stress hormones that are running through our body. The key there is hormones. So for women, we know that our hormones change even our spatial relationships, which is one of the things the hippocampus is responsible for. So I can, oh, hold on a second. I could walk through a door a million different times, but when my hormones change, boom, all of a sudden I run into it. I'm like, what the heck, right? See, I think it's a female, but I see a couple of women go like, yeah. We know like sometimes our hormones change, we get irritable. But sometimes it's stress related. So it can do the same thing for us. You had a question.
I was going to also say heart attacks, anxiety attacks can mimic heart attack symptoms.
Yes. Yes. So panic attacks, anxiety attacks can mimic heart attacks. Yes. We have quite a few things that will mimic that. And so it's really important to know what your symptoms are so that you can work on ways to reduce them. Now, if you're having a heart attack, call 911. But kind of knowing that there's probably more than just one symptom happening at a time because, again, our stress hormones impact our brain and our body. Let's see. Oh, so some people experience clumsiness, loss of balance, itchy skin. I run a trauma group at HopeWay, and so I have like this list of ongoing symptoms. I'm like, oh, that's a new one. I got to add that. Nightmares, of course. But a lot of these symptoms we ignore, and a lot of the symptoms we write off or we normalize. It's like, oh, my stomach's upset again. All right, I'll take some Pepto-Bismol. Or muscle aches. You know how many times you wake up and you're like, right? Like we just sort of blow it off. Or if we struggle to make decisions, we're like, oh, it's my brain. I'm not always so good at putting words to things or making decisions. So we kind of dismiss a lot of the symptoms and, again, normalize them into our everyday life. And if we really pay attention to them, we can be like, oh, there's cortisol running through my brain. I got to find out ways around this. So yeah, these are the signs that your stress system has been activated. Yeah, and interestingly enough, like with me with a stomach upset, I don't crave salad. Does anyone crave salad? Like you're like, oh, I'm starving. I sure hope there's a tomato there. Yeah, no. We want things that provide us comfort. Pasta, bread, cake, right? So we're looking for things that will either make us sleepy, like those heavier starches, or we look for something that gives us a little more energy, like the sugar, right? Ah, right? That's like, oh, I wish I craved salad. Okay, so when these symptoms are not just a temporary thing, but they keep happening over and over and over again, or we have a very stressful job or a stressful relationship, or we have, childhood trauma and then teenage trauma and then young, whatever, it can lead to some it has a long-term impact on our body. Some of these are high blood pressure, insomnia, other sleep disturbances, fatigue, sleep disturbances like nightmares, bad dreams, a weakened immune system. So this is where we get sick all the time, or we get infections all the time. Research has shown that there is a correlation of a direct increase to autoimmune diseases from too much unresolved traumatic stress running through our system. Increased risk of heart disease, heart attack, increased risk of diabetes. Remember I mentioned glucocorticoid, it's like my favorite word. Glucocorticoid is a sugar-based hormone, gluco. And what it does is it gives us a little bit of energy. It works with adrenaline to boost us up so we can fight or flight. But it also has to process through our kidneys, right? And when we have too much of that, it disrupts our ability to manage our insulin. So when we have high stress, there's a correlation between high stress and high rates of diabetes. Yeah. The other thing that glucocorticoid does is, I have to do some sign language here. Our memories kind of look like this, the memory structures. So we have an event, and then we have sort of the sensations along with that, and there's a connector between the two. And glucocorticoid disrupts the connection. So we have a random event, and then we have random emotions running around. So it messes with our memory as well. This is why sometimes remember time goes offline, but when we experience, especially a trauma, it's hard to put it in sequence, or it's hard to remember events, or some people will say, I don't remember 10 and under, whatever it is, right? Sometimes that's the impact of glucocorticoid. Sometimes there's nothing there to remember. And sometimes we don't want to remember it, right? So a couple different things about that one hormone that I really love to say. So long-term impact, depression, anxiety, obesity, skin irritation. A lot of people don't know that like inflammation, our body, especially in our joints, inflames, and we can also get skin irritation, and those are signs of stress. We'll go to the doctor and be like, look at my joints, they're all inflamed, and they're going to give you something for that, probably another type of hormone, right? But sometimes if we learn how to decrease those stress symptoms, we can actually reduce the inflammation in our body. Gastrointestinal issues, again, we look at Crohn's disease, we look at ulcers, we look at anything that would impact that. So again, when the stress hormones are running through your body, this part of your body is not getting as much blood in circulation as you need it to have a healthy, functioning gut. Memory and attention issues. All right, it's not too late to de-stress. So I've gone over some of the symptoms, a lot of the symptoms. You'll know your own symptoms. And now you kind of understand a little bit about what's happening in your body and your brain as you're doing that. So here's 3 simple steps to better brain health. 1, recognize your symptoms. Or I should say, recognize the symptoms of a stressed out brain or body. What are the ones that you have? Number 2, identify them as such. Don't be like, I'm just hungry and I have this insatiable appetite for bread. I don't know what's going on. I can't make decisions, right? Like, you really call it for what it is, and don't be afraid to do that. So identify the symptoms and know that they're related to cortisol and other stress hormones, and then work to reduce the production of cortisol. Now, it sounds easy enough, and it actually is, and we're going to get to that in a second. But we don't, a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about is stuff you already do. We're just going to shift it and do it with intention. It's 1 foot. All right, so here's some 7 simple ways to reduce your stress hormones. Number 1 is to breathe. This is something you do automatically. I don't have to tell you how to do it. Your body's going to do it whether I want you to or not. But what we can do is we can do intentional breathing. So again, I teach meditation. And a lot of the meditation that I teach involves breath work, and like the last slide. But I'm going to have you do something right now with me just to kind of show you where you're at, and then we're going to shift it. So you don't have to do anything. Just stay where you're at. I was going to say, let's do the hokey pokey. But I'm just going to have you pay attention to your breath, right? Just notice your inhale and your exhale. Then don't change it, just notice it. And I'm going to have you count. How long does it take you to inhale and then exhale? That's 1 breath, right? Most people will say 4 to 6 seconds. Is that right for most? Anyone longer? A couple? Great. Anyone shorter? Couple? Yeah. So a healthy breath is about 10 to 11 seconds long. So we should be 5 seconds on the inhale and 6 seconds on the exhale, or 4.5 seconds on the inhale. What happens when we are under a lot of stress is that breathing gets really shallow, right? Because we have to not move. And if we breathe, we're moving our rib cage, and our shoulders move and our neck moves. So we breathe really shallow. So when you are breathing, you can actually count how long it takes you to breathe. And if you're under 10 seconds, just like, I might be a little stressed out. We kind of breathe like bunnies. So what I'm going to have you do is there's a great way to hack the brain using your breath. And that is we're going to breathe through our belly. What that means is you're going to push your belly out. I can't do it and talk at the same time, sorry. You're going to push your belly out like you just had dinner, as many of you did. And then you're going to fill your lungs like a gallon of water under a tap, so from the bottom up. So you push your belly out and inhale. And then as you exhale, you're going to push your belly back to your spine. Okay? And we're going to try to slow the breath down. So breathe with me. Push your belly out and fill your lungs. And then slowly exhale. Push your belly back to your spine. Inhale. Push your belly out. Fill your lungs. And then exhale and push your belly back to your spine. We're going to do 2 more breaths. So inhale. Pull your belly out. Fill your lungs. Exhale, push your belly back to your spine. 1 more time like this. Inhale, and then exhale. What you've just done is stopped your cortisol production. We moved, if you remember, one of the areas that doesn't get blood flow is our stomach when we're under stress. And so by moving those muscles back and forth as we breathe, we're actually bringing blood flow back to that area of our body. And it immediately tells our brain, oh, it's time to rest and digest. And we engage our parasympathetic nervous system. Intentional breathing is magical. I don't have any other words for it. I've been teaching it for a long time, and I'm like, it's just mind-blowing how cool it is. So intentional breath work. Get a good night's rest. Not always easy when you're stressed out, but a good night's rest can really, we all know this. If we don't get a good night's rest, we are miserable the next day. And we tell everybody we are miserable. I didn't sleep good last night. I was up again at 4. But here's the thing, like 2 nights ago, I was wide awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I did belly breathing. And I was asleep by the 3rd breath. So whatever was happening, well, I know it was happening. I was preparing for the presentation, and I stressed myself out, and I went to bed, and I woke up probably with a dream about the presentation, and I had to calm my nervous system down. So I did the belly breathing. Now, at HopeWay we practice and we teach a lot about sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene is very easy to practice, and it's so good for your sleep. What that means is an hour before you go to bed, try to go to bed at the same time every night, right? Or a similar time, Turn off your TV. Turn off your cell phone. Get off your social media. Turn your lights down low. They don't have to be off. They just have to be dimmed a little bit because we respond to light. If you can, put on some soft music. No AC/DC, but something, spa-like. Light a candle, get a book, but calm the environment that you're in. Reduce the stimulus, right? We do this for the puppies that I'm fostering. I put them in the crate, we get quiet, we put the cover over the crate, right? We have to kind of do the same thing before we go to bed for our own sleep hygiene. Get your body moving. In the morning, a good stretch. Just take 5 minutes to stretch. Our body releases a natural paralytic when we sleep. And it does that because when we dream, our brain is actually 1/3 times more active when we are asleep than it is when we are awake. And we have these dreams, and our brain is organizing all the stuff that happened to figure out what happened yesterday that's going to get me to tomorrow to make me sure that I can get to the next day, right? Like survival. So we release this natural paralytic because if I'm dreaming about, I don't know, running after, running away from the saber-toothed tiger, I don't want to be caught running down my neighborhood, being like, there's a tiger chasing me and I'm sound asleep. So the body paralyzes us. Well, when we wake up in the morning, we still have that paralytic in our system. And so just a good stretch is one of the best things we can do. The other thing we can do is go for a walk. Anything. In therapy, we say, move a muscle, change a thought. It doesn't take a lot. I mean, if you want to do Zumba, that's great. But like at HopeWay, we also do yoga. We do a lot of walking. We do a lot of stretching. It's so important for your mental health. Now think about, as you move around, you get your blood flowing back throughout your entire body. And if the blood's flowing here, it's flowing here. And blood actually helps to cleanse our system as well. Picks up all the stuff we need to get rid of. All right, eat healthier. Again, I wish I craved salad. But we can eat healthier. Now think about if you just had a diet of Twinkies and macaroni and cheese versus a diet that had some salad and salmon in it, you're going to feel very different regarding what you eat, right? So eating healthier is one of the easiest things we can do, and it's also one of the more challenging things because we are so stressed out, we look for those foods that comfort us. But if we can reduce our stress, we might actually start craving salad. Who knows? Engage in your hobbies and your interests and things that make you feel like you. When we don't feel good, when we feel stressed out, the first thing to go is all the things that make us feel better. We stop doing the things we love. We stop listening to music. Oh, listen to music's the next one. Listening to music. Music impacts us greatly. And if you're not quite certain about that, just think of the movie Jaws. Dun, 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 dun. Right? Like, that's all I had to do, and y'all got stressed out. Like a teaspoon of stress hormone, right? Ugh. Now think of the Titanic movie, Titanic, where they're at the helm, and that beautiful music's playing, right? Calms us down. Listen to or watch a movie without a soundtrack, you're like, oh, this is terrible. So music impacts us, and learn something new. So our hobbies will sometimes teach us something new. We engage in novel activities. Our brain loves novel activities. It shoots us dopamine. It also hates it because it likes things to be the same, so it's a little bit of a conflict there. But learn something new. Do something slightly different. We are creatures of habit. We've all heard that. So one of the things you can do to actually calm your brain down is do something with your non-dominant hand. Try brushing your teeth with your non-dominant. I can't even do it. I have to shake my head to do it. So if you're doing brush your hair with your non-dominant hand, you're going to get such a boost of dopamine because your brain doesn't know what to do, and it's like, oh, we're learning something new, and it likes it, and it's actually so the brain can't do two things at once. Like it can't produce cortisol and dopamine. So it has to make a choice. Like, oh, I'm stressed out. I don't know what to wear. Okay, I'll brush my hair with my non-dominant hand, right? And it's like, oh, dopamine. Okay, we're going to reduce the cortisol. So some really simple things. Now, you could also take a glass blowing class. That would be learning something new, probably become a hobby, get you walk into the studio, or you can, do something simple you can even change your shower routine. If you wash your hair and then your body and then, I don't know, your toes, you can start washing your toes first. Change it up a little bit. All right. Oh, sorry. There we go. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about your brain on art. I am an art therapist. I'm also an artist, and art is very, very good for you. Any type of creativity, journaling, art making, etc. There was a study out of Drexel University about 8 years ago. It was published. This is like one of my favorite studies. And it said 40 minutes of art making actually drops your cortisol level. Hey. Here's the cool thing. They did a consequent study 2 years later and found that not only does art making drop your cortisol levels, but it increases your dopamine, your feel-good hormones. Then they did another study, it's not on here, 2 years later, and found that, oh, you don't need 40 minutes, you only need 15. It's pretty cool. This is why adult coloring books are a thing nowadays. We are stressed to the hilt, and coloring makes us feel good. So go to Paper Skyscraper, get yourself some adult coloring books, and have some fun. Intentional doodling. I'm also of an age where doodling was not looked upon highly in school. You were actually sort of punished for, like, don't draw on the side of your paper. But we find that doodling, intentional or unintentional, but more so intentional, actually helps you retain more information. So the next time you're in a business meeting, just doodle, and your boss will get really upset, like, why are you doodling? Be like, I'm retaining more information, Marianne said so. Yeah, so the bottom line is making art makes us feel better. Okay, and your brain on meditation. So meditation is really here to gain control and mastery over one's own body, and also to engage our parasympathetic nervous system. Again, when cortisol is in our system, the sympathetic one is going, that's the gas pedal. The parasympathetic one is like, oh, time for a nap. That's the one we want to engage sometimes. So meditation in its simplest form is paying attention on purpose to the present moment without judgment. Paying attention is hard enough. We have the great distractors here. Our attention spans have reduced from 13 seconds to about 7, or like 6 or 7. And from what research has said, and I don't know how they found this information, but a goldfish's attention span is about 8 seconds. So we are like 1 second behind the goldfish on attention spans. Now, I don't know how you test the attention span of a goldfish, but apparently they did it. Anyway, paying attention is really hard for us. Doing it on purpose. So if an ambulance went by right now with the sirens on, we would pay attention to it, but it wouldn't necessarily be on purpose, right? So intentionally saying, I am going to do this now, and I'm going to focus on it. That's being intentional. The present moment, again, our mind loves to travel, so we love to not be here. Our body's here, but our brain's everywhere else. So paying attention to the present literally is, you can do it now. So I'm going to stop talking for about 30 seconds and just notice what sounds you hear. So you probably hear the fan of the computer, buzz of the electric lights, slight shifting in chairs, clock ticking. Yeah, okay. That was being mindful. That was paying attention on purpose to the present moment, and hopefully there was no judgment involved, right? We're very hard on ourselves, and so sometimes we're very judgmental, and mainly of ourselves, and if we can release that, it reduces our stress, right? When we are judgmental on ourselves, saying like, I have to do better, I'm not good enough, etc., that actually releases stress hormones, and it reduces our learning and our ability to pay attention. So be kind to ourselves there. Mindfulness is using anything in the body, any of your senses, balance, what do you see, what do you smell, what do you hear, what do you taste. We practice mindful eating at HopeWay as well in our learning kitchen, which is really brilliant. Because you'd be surprised at how many different flavors come through in different types of oranges. Who knew? But it was awesome. We also find in our mindfulness study with food that as we did this, we had like 7 different types of oranges, and then we had Gardettos. Don't get me wrong, Gardettos are awesome, and then some other junk food. And people would mindfully eat the fruit and be like, oh, this one's lemony. Oh, this one's got a little berry to it. And then they get to the Gardettos and they're like, and all of a sudden it was like this, yeah, right, hand to mouth, I can't stop. And we would ask people, like, what's happening here? And they're like, I just want to get rid of the taste in my mouth. Because the taste of Gardettos, if you let them sit in your mouth, is actually kind of gross. It tastes like baking soda. And so we put more in it, because we're like, give me an orange. Okay, and then, of course, breath work. So again, focusing in on your breath. We did that exercise today with the belly breathing. And these are ways to reduce your cortisol. So these are some ways that you can have a healthier brain, is recognize, when you're stressed out. You can identify your stressors. Oh, and yay! I did well. Karen's my timekeeper. She said 10 more minutes. So I'm like, oh. I expected to go like an hour long. So yeah, pay attention to your stressors and your stress levels. Notice what your symptoms are. And then once you recognize your symptoms, do things to reduce your cortisol. It seems impossible, but it's so simple. It's as simple as breathing, making art, journaling, going for a walk. Some resources, and I don't know if you want to, questions. So, right? I can. I don't even have to stand on one leg to do that. Now, I didn't talk about neuroplasticity, and I know that that came up as, could you please talk about neuroplasticity? And once upon a time, we sort of believed that if there was any kind of thing happening in our brain, once it happened, that was it. That was done. But what we know is that the brain is malleable. It changes all the time. It grows all the time. There's some really cool research out in the past, I don't know, I'm going to say 10 years. Neuroscience and the MRI and the functional MRIs have really helped us to better understand what happens in our brain. And through all of these things, we've learned that we can do remarkable things. So, for instance, a person who is born blind, they can wear a special vest that sends vibrations because you don't actually see through your eyes. Your eyes are just the receptors of what's out there to take it in, but you see somewhere in your occipital lobes. So the information goes into your brain and it meets with other things and it develops what we think we see out here, right? So science has found a way to create vibrations that represent the neural pathways in our brain so that people who are blind can actually see images. They can do the same thing with people who can't hear. They can create vibrations so that they can hear. Taste is another thing. We don't actually taste in our mouth. This is just one of the receptors, but we taste through also our smell and our sight, and it happens at the back of our brain. Yeah, cool. Brain is cool stuff. So I forgot. Oh, neuroplasticity. That's where I was going with that. So the brain will find ways to adapt. The brain will find ways to work around. Here's a really, may I draw on the, Karen, may I draw, or Kathleen? Okay. All right. So you have your neurons. Sorry, they go this way. And let's say we have, this is a really great drawing of a neuron, by the way. Stellar. And they are surrounded by what's called a myelin sheath, right? So every time we have a thought and it connects, it's one to the other, boop, they jump this little thing. The insulated sheath gets a little bit thicker. So let's say I have a thought that I can't do whatever. Yeah. And every time we have that thought, we put more insulation on this sheath. It's kind of like the plastic around copper wires. The more it's insulated, the faster the energy goes. So when we have those negative thoughts, for instance, this gets thicker and thicker, and so pretty soon we don't have to think the negative thoughts. Our brain just thinks it for us, right? I can't, well, I can't do that, I can't. But now we want to replace it with, let's say, a new thought. I can, and the first time, I keep doing it the wrong way. The first time we have that I can thought, we develop a new synapses. Boop. We already have the nerve endings there, but it just makes the new leap, right? And then I keep saying, I can. I did. I can. I did. Look at this. Ooh, it's getting thicker. But the brain doesn't have room for both of these. So it starts to diminish, the one we're not using. So the thicker this insulation gets, the thinner this insulation gets. And it doesn't mean that you won't ever have the thought, I can't, but it just means that I can is easier accessible. And this is part of neuroplasticity. Yeah.
So is that what like affirmations are for? Like
yeah.
Meditation, that's like, you kind of like actively like replacing that? Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's exactly it. That's exactly it. And self-compassion. Yeah. Self-compassion, I'll get to you in just a second. Self-compassion is, like what I always tell clients when they come into meditation where I work, right? They're depressed, they're anxious, et cetera, and they don't want to do meditation. Nobody wants to sit, like there is nothing more painful than sitting with your thoughts when your thoughts are torturing you. And research has shown that people would rather give themselves small electric shocks than sit with their thoughts, right? So then I'm like, welcome into meditation. We're going to sit with our thoughts for half an hour. And people don't want to do it, right? So when they come in and they're like, I can't do this. And I say, but you made it. You're here. So self-compassion is not like, I'm awesome. Self-compassion is, oh, I did it anyway. I didn't want to do this, but I came. I didn't want to give it a try, but I did, right? So self-compassion is giving yourself credit for the things that you didn't want to do, but you did anyway. And then we practice affirmations once we're there. Yeah. And you had a question, wait.
So I just want to, I'm Reed Bailey, I'm also a licensed therapist. I just want to There were studies done in the 70s over like 20,000 different twins. To develop schizophrenia, you have to have the gene of schizophrenia, but there were a lot of twins, you have to have a stressor to activate it. So there are so many cases where the difference between one twin that developed schizophrenia and the other one that didn't develop schizophrenia was literally one twin was kind to themselves and the other twin was not kind to themselves. So in thousands of examples, the difference between developing schizophrenia and not developing schizophrenia is positive self-talk.
Yeah.
This isn't just like important for like your casual daily mood, but it can radically transform your life.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so true. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about meditation? So you say you teach meditation. So how do you have somebody get started with it, and how do you see the benefits of it?
Oh, there's so many benefits. Well, the main benefit too is reducing that cortisol level, right? So allowing us to feel more relaxed. Another benefit is, again, when we're stuck in the past, it feels like depression. Stuck in the future, it feels like anxiety. And so it brings us back to the present moment. When I facilitate meditation, I like to talk about time travel. I like to talk about the fact that we have over 60,000 thoughts in our brain every day, believe it or not. So it's one thought every 1.43 seconds. I didn't just do that math. I had a calculator. So we get attached to the thoughts, right? This thought must be true. Thing is we often have thoughts that are just on repeat. We're not thinking new thoughts. We're just thinking the same thing over and over. The nice thing about meditation is it makes those thoughts less sticky and allows us to move through them. So now we're not attached to them and we can sort of watch them almost as though they're entertainment. So when I teach meditation, I start with the breath work and I get people accustomed to doing things like belly breathing, which is good to hack the brain. I do box breathing, which is good for after a stressful event. Box breathing? Yeah, so it's, and you can look it up, but it's 4 seconds inhaling, 4 seconds holding your breath, 4 seconds exhaling, 4 seconds holding your breath, and you do that a minimum of 4 times. Our military uses that for combat veterans when they come back from combat to help them de-stress, and they make the box, that's where it comes from.
You do it 4 times?
4 times. We also do 4-7-8, which is part of the breathing sleep hygiene. So it's progressive muscle relaxation. So you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 7, and then you exhale for a slow 8. And that exhale just kind of drops your muscles down. So what we want to do is practice relaxing. One of the hardest things people have to do when they are stressed out is feel comfortable when they're relaxed. Because we're so used to being stressed out that we're not comfortable feeling comfortable. We're not comfortable feeling relaxed. So we'll do things to keep ourselves sort of agitated. I got to clean the house. I got to do this. We have the to-do list, right? So that's how I practice meditation. I also do the art of meditation. So I use a lot of art processes to facilitate meditation. So a lot of times it's hard for people to just sit and breathe, right? Our mind wanders. It's the incredible wanderer. And so I'll have them just draw their breath. You know, just imagine that your breath is moving the crayon and you inhale it in and you exhale it out. And we just do that for about 20 minutes. And it's amazing because people look up and they got big smiles on their faces and I'm like, how you feel? And they're like, I feel great. And I'm like, yes, you do, and you're welcome. I said, what thoughts are in your head? They're like, I don't have a single thought in my head. And I'm like, you're welcome. So what happens is we enter into a secondary state of flow. It's the same thing like prayer is meditation, right? Any type of exercising can be meditation. So again, it's that paying attention on purpose to the present moment without judgment. And so when we start to practice that, we can actually switch into that secondary state of flow where we lose track of time and we just feel kind of blissed out. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
You did.
Okay. Karen, did you have a question?
No, I was just saying your time's up.
All right. Well,
I'm giving you the 5.
oh, you're giving me the 5. I was like, hey. Hello, my friend.
So what's your favorite book or your resources? If you're someone who's wanting to look into that.
I have so many good books, and these are just the start. Because I'm an artist, your brain on art is remarkable for anyone who's creative, right? This is a compilation of research over 20 years on all the good things that happen with your brain while you make art. Breathe has been my Bible for meditation. It talks about the necessity of breath, how we can change our breath. We can actually change our breath by removing the pause. Like if we inhale, we pause then naturally, and then we exhale and we pause. We can remove that pause, and it can actually change our body temperature. Yeah, right? It's cool stuff. Meditations for Healing Trauma is probably one of the first books that I read when I started facilitating meditation, because I do so much trauma work. And it has really great exercises. If y'all want, go ahead, and I'm going to have you do just one more exercise. Just clasp your hands. This is a comfort position. This is in the book of Meditations for Healing Trauma. Now, just kind of notice how you feel, right? Comfortable, relaxed, no big deal. Open your hands and rotate and put the other thumb on top. How many people are like, ew.
I mean, I like my fingers.
I can't do this. Like, what's happening with my fingers, right? Okay, so you notice where you feel it in your body. Different people will feel it in different, a lot of people will feel tension in their back or their shoulders, their legs. Yeah, or just in their stomach. Right, oh, I don't like that, I heard that. Go ahead and put it back to your comfort position. Right, now I feel relieved. This is a small change. All we did was rotate our fingers, and you could feel the impact that that had on our body. And this is how we respond to stress and change. This was stressful. And then we go back to comfort. And what we can do then is recognize, oh, I'm comfortable. Whew, this is what stress feels like. Okay, I can bring myself back to homeostasis and find that comfort again. So that's in the Meditations for Healing Trauma. There's a lot of really good books out there. I should have a longer list here because I listen to them all the time. But yeah, those are some of my favorites. Yeah.
This has been fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I could tell everyone was just absorbing and getting so much out of it. And I want to let you all know that next week we have a fantastic next step. Lindsay Bridges is a church member and also a retired physician who is with the Charlotte Center for Mindfulness, and she has an excellent program on mindfulness. I've gotten to hear it before. Actually, her presentation, when I heard it a number of years ago, is what really got me interested in learning more about mindfulness and practicing it myself. And so I really hope you'll come back for that. The week after that, Alex Bacon, also a church member, will come and talk about therapy. She's calling it Therapy Curious, and this is one, just what is therapy? What does it mean to go to therapy? How do you look to find a therapist? What might you expect when you go to therapy? And I want to encourage you to think about this, not just for yourselves, but for people in your life. So you can talk to folks. And Stephen Ministers, really, this is a great one for y'all. And then we'll wrap up with Mark Glazer, our organist, who is also a certified music therapist. And he's going to talk about our minds on music and the powerful things that music does with and for our minds. So please keep coming back and let me know if you have any questions. Marianne, we're so grateful today. Thank you.
Anyone wants to know more about HopeWay?
Oh yeah, I should have said, yes. HopeWay is an extraordinary resource in our community. We're very fortunate to have it.
Yeah.